So I wanted to start this hour by quoting something I found from the Washington Examiner. It was an editorial by them in their opinion piece. It's actually an opinion piece that shows that there's a lot of problems with this immigration proposal that Trump pushed forward yesterday. It was brought forward by a couple of senators, but Trump pushed for it yesterday, and it's created a bunch of debate. And this piece actually is saying it has some problems. But there's one paragraph here that I wanted to focus on. I actually posted this on my Facebook earlier. So if you send me a friend request on Facebook, you would have saw it. You should do that. I post a bunch of great stuff. It says this: from the founding of the original colonies in the 17th century, America has permitted and encouraged immigration, but never for immigrants' sake. It has encouraged their entry for the good of the nation, according to the needs of the times. The open door of yesteryear was not purely an act of altruism, as some characteristically tendentious cable news reporting on Wednesday sought to suggest. Immigrants have in each era breathed new life into their new homeland, and that was at the core of why they were welcome. Immigration policy should continue in that tradition, consistent with the needs of the host nation, refreshing the nation's bloodstream with those most eager to come and embrace the American values of liberalism, toleration, and self-reliance. I wanted to start off by reading that because it's just such common sense truth. That's true. So many on the left and the politically correct crowd don't want to admit that, but that's the reality. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason. In a world that is beyond reason, we are on till 9 p.m. tonight if you're listening to the live show here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. If you miss any of the show, you can catch the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. I talked about this a lot on last night's show. Oh, by the way, we have Mr. Tom Benson.
I am here.
Who is producing. Yes, you are here. Yay.
Well, we had an interesting first hour. The governor of West Virginia is moving from the Democratic ranks to the Republican ranks.
Yes, it only took him a half an hour to announce it. But yes.
That's a politician for you. You know?
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting how the Democrats react to that. I have to say, I don't know if I would want to go to a rally. It just caught me that you have thousands of people that go to this rally, and they're standing around forever waiting for the president to show up. Mm-hmm. And it'll last maybe less than an hour, and then they have to leave.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this during the news at the top of the hour. The people who stand directly behind the president are chosen and selected ahead of time. They've probably been standing there for at least 2 hours before the rally even starts. That's a long time just to be standing there.
I know. I was thinking that. I'm like, even if I really like the president or whatever, I'm not going to
stand there for 3 hours.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I just watch it on TV. I just have to say. And he actually did bring up the immigration stuff in his speech and other stuff as well. But, just thinking about this whole debate over this immigration bill, most of it, some of this stuff has been supported by Democrats for years. Basically, it's reprioritizing our immigration system based on it's a merit-based system. That doesn't mean you have to be the highest skilled person to get in. It just those are the first in the line because we want the best to be able to get in. And other countries do this. And it's a reprioritization because that's what the times suggest. Immigration, like the piece said, is not for the immigrant. It's for the best of our country. And it prioritizes high skills so that they don't come here and have to get on the public dole, which a lot of them do. And so that they can contribute to the best parts of our country. And it prioritizes those who speak English because English is the dominant language in our country. That's what people speak here. It's good if you can speak the language. And yet, it's turned into this whole crazy debate over, once again, racism. When this isn't even about race. Most of this is just when you get rid of all the political chatter and just boil it down to what's in it. Most of it's just common sense stuff. Really? Really. Most of it's just common sense stuff. It doesn't get rid of all immigrants. There's nothing in it about race, actually. But there was that whole exchange between Jim Acosta and Stephen Miller yesterday. We played the whole thing on yesterday's show. You can catch the podcast. But there's one part of it that I wanted to focus on that Acosta brought up that seems to be the focus for a lot of people on the left. And really, it's just beyond reason. Here's that part of it.
And I just want to say...
It sounds like you're trying to engineer the racial and ethnic flow of people into this country.
Yeah, that is one of the most outrageous, insulting, ignorant, and foolish things you've ever said. And for you, that's still a really... The notion that you think that this is a racist bill is so wrong and so insulting.
So he brings up, he says, it seems like you're trying to engineer a racial and ethnic priorities of people who come into this country. And Stephen Miller goes, that's completely ignorant. The fact that you would say this is a racist bill, and then Steve Acosta goes, oh, I didn't say it was a racist bill. You pretty much did. I mean, come on. You said a racial, ethnic, you're trying to engineer racial, ethnic groups into coming to this country. Now, this is completely absurd. How do I know this? And I talked about this yesterday. I guarantee you, when you're reprioritizing our immigration to deal with people that are high skilled, especially in STEM, especially in technical jobs, they're not going to be white. Most of them, a lot of them, are not going to be white. They're going to be Asian. Probably a lot of them are going to be Asian. You're going to have Chinese, Japanese. You're going to have Indian
from India.
And I was thinking about this, and I'm just talking about in my own life. One of my best friends works in a microbiology lab in Florida. Best friend of mine. I had met some of his coworkers that are friends with him. They were immigrants who speak English, who are highly skilled and brought over here because they can work the STEM type jobs. They're from China. They're not white, British, Australian people like Jim Acosta was trying to mention. They're from China. Those are the kind of immigrants that are coming. That's just an example in my life. Another example in my life is I used to work at Siemens Power Generation. I worked in their records department for 7 years. There was a guy who I really liked. We sat next to each other. We would have political debates. But he was from Bangladesh, and he was Muslim, but he was totally proficient in English. And he came, and he was a highly skilled, highly educated person who came here to work as an immigrant. He wasn't white. He wasn't even Christian. He was from Bangladesh. I guarantee those are the kind of people that are going to come here. And they speak English. 1.5 billion people in the world speak English. So this whole idea that this is a racist bill, and this is about engineering racial stereotypes coming into this country. It's just, if some people, if that's the goal, it's the worst way of putting that goal forward. Let's put it that way. If the goal is to bring a bunch of white people, this is the worst way to do that. Because it's just not going to happen. It's just a common sense approach that other countries do. But we can't have an honest, reasonable debate because it always seems to go back to this racial stuff. Now, I wanted to play a bit here. Of all people, Joe Scarborough, on his show this morning, Morning Joe, who is now an independent, used to be a Republican, but he's been leaning to the left a lot and criticizing Trump. I was listening to the exchange of their panelists this morning, and even the liberal ones, for one, they were saying Jim Acosta should not be doing this. He's a reporter, a journalist, at a White House press briefing. You're not a journalist. You're not helping your case for our side by being this reporter and basically grandstanding and lecturing the guy. That's not why you're there. So there's even some on the left who are admitting, yeah, Jim Acosta did not make things look good. Now, Jim Acosta was on CNN yesterday, and CNN put him on all their shows afterwards, and they said, oh, it was great. Oh, he won. Whatever. They're going to do that. But even Joe Scarborough admitted that part of this went off the rails. And this is what he said.
Where things seemed to really melt down was when Jim Acosta talked, and we're certainly not putting this on Jim Acosta. You can watch the clip and choose sides, or just say, as Tim said afterwards, maybe we shouldn't have TVs in the press room after all. But when Jim Acosta used the language of, it seems like your policies are trying to engineer racial and ethnic percentages or something, it sure sounded like something that you would read out of like Mein Kampf or something. I mean, talking about it looks like you're like engaged in racial engineering and ethnic engineering, or something that we would have accused the Serbs of doing back in the early 1990s. At that point, it went off the rails.
Mm-hmm. Even Joe Scarborough admits it went off the rails, and it did, because that's not a part of this. Now you can have problems with this. That piece I was just reading at the start of the show from the Washington Examiner, they don't like it because they don't think limiting the amount of immigrants coming in is a good idea. They like the reprioritization part of it, but they think once you reprioritize it for high-skilled workers, you don't need to limit the amount of people. I mean, there's a lot of different debates you can have about. Some people say there's no reason to limit the refugees coming in. That shouldn't be a part of this. Other people say that we need the low-skilled workers. That's good for our economy as well. So there's different things you can debate on this about the actual merits of the bill, and that's fine. But it just seems like we get into these games of these political games where we're just trying to win, and it all becomes about race. And I just keep thinking, is it possible to ever get past race in this country? We have so many people that say the goal is to become a colorblind society, where what Martin Luther King said, judge someone by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And it seems like, and I can wonder if that's ever possible. Because even when the issue really has nothing to do about race, it somehow becomes part of it. And even those who once said, minorities, who once said that should be the goal, that doesn't seem to be the goal anymore for a lot of leaders in the minority community. They want things like reparations. That's not going towards a colorblind society. That's the opposite. They want payback. Where does all this lead? I guess is what I'm saying. Can we ever get to a point where we can be a colorblind society? And you can blame whites partly for that. But I just wonder. And what really made me think about this is there was an exchange on CNN from a few panelists, one a black man, one a white man, and one a Hispanic woman. And they get into an exchange, and we'll get into it. It's like 6 minutes long. So you have to stay with me this hour. We'll get into the next segment and so forth. But it just lays out how crazy this debate gets sometimes. And how we just cannot seem to move. You know, in reality, in this country, we have come so far as a country in dealing with race. We really have. In the past 40 years, 50 years of this country, we really have come a long way. Better than a lot of other countries out there, considering our history. But it just seems like sometimes it seems like the goal is not really to get better. We just divide each other up for politics or money or power. It just all seems like a game. And it just bothers me. So we'll go through that audio and take your calls and texts as well. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Orlando Smart Talk Radio, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, joined by Tom Benson, producing as well. You can call 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. You can also like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page or follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. So we've been talking about the immigration bill. that's being pushed by Trump and some senators. And it's facing some backlash in the Senate. It looks like even Republicans, it's going to be really hard to pass. But, I mean, it's basically one of Trump's campaign's promises he's trying to fulfill. It's what he believed in. And the one thing that really bothered me about it is somehow it once again became about race. And there's so many issues where I just feel like we cannot really move forward in this country because we can't seem to move forward on race. We can't seem to move past looking everything based on race. And I don't know if it's possible. And I wonder if the goal, I used to believe that I thought the goal was to be a colorblind society where equal opportunity for all, where we judged on the content of your care. I thought that was the goal. And that's a good goal to have as a society. But I just wonder sometimes, because it seems like anytime you bring up an issue that just prioritizes immigration based on common sense solutions that's best for your country, and immediately people bring up that it's somehow racist. And it's just, I don't, and I'm thinking, man, they do this with everything. We're never going to move forward. So, and what really got me thinking about this is there was an exchange on CNN on the Anderson Cooper show last night between a guy by the name of Charles Blow, Jeffrey Lord, and Ana Navarro. Charles Blow's a black man, Jeffrey Lord's a white man, and Navarro's a Hispanic woman. And they were talking about this immigration bill. And Jeffrey Lord, you'll hear first, and then Ana Navarro, then Charles Blow. And he was just talking about how it should be good for any immigration policy to focus on assimilation. It's common sense stuff. But where it goes from there is interesting. This is the conversation starts.
I want to address as well my friend Charles here on what is assimilation. My mother is Irish on her side of the family. So, on St. Patrick's Day, I have corned beef and cabbage and maybe a green beer. Trust me, I'm not Irish. I'm an American. That's the point. There is no one in America who's an American citizen. That Donald Trump is
when
German.
the Irish came here, they weren't viewed as American. In fact, the racism against Irish people was overwhelming.
I understand, which is why we have to move past this and not do a thing where we are, in essence, resegregating the country.
Okay, stop right there. So we said the goal should be in immigration, assimilation. And he explains what assimilation is. That, yes, you keep some of your heritage, but that you sort of assimilate to the common American culture. And they say, well, yeah, and the Irish had a real hard time with that at the beginning. And he says, that's my point, that we shouldn't make it worse, but eventually they were able to assimilate. And that should be a good goal. And you would think this is common sense stuff. But it's not. And Ana Navarro weighs in, and then she gets into it with him here.
Bad thing.
Anna, is this resegregation?
No, Jeff, it must be so nice to be a white male.
What does that have to do with it?
Okay, stop right there. So what does she do immediately? Oh, well, it must be so nice to be a white male. So he's talking about assimilation, getting into a common culture, uniting based on some common values. And immediately, who brings up the race aspect? She does. Oh, it must be nice to be a white male. What? And he's like, what does that have to do with what I'm talking about? Nothing. But here it continues on here.
And I think you just completely missed the point of what makes us wonderful here in America is that I can go celebrate St. Patrick's Day and that you can celebrate Cinco de Mayo.
Yes.
Or you can celebrate the 15th of September, and that does not define being American.
Agreed.
Go to the Vietnam Wall. Go to any of the memorials. Go to Arlington and take a look at all of the Polish, Italians, Hispanic names that you will see on those. They bled and they died for this country.
Okay, but stop right there. So she's trying to make this point that, all these different groups went and died for our country. And she's really just proving his point, that all those people came into this country and work together for a common goal to fight for the country and assimilated as one people. That's kind of the point that he's trying to make here. That doesn't mean you get rid of all of your heritage, but that there's sort of a common goal, shared values involved in becoming an American. And it's funny, she's trying to go an opposite point, but she's actually kind of proving his point. She continues on.
of them are the children, or they themselves came here without speaking English and became American. So there is no such, you know what's beautiful about America? That there is not one single label of Americanism. America means loving your country. America means sacrificing for your country. America means putting your country first. It does not mean what language you came here speaking. It does not mean what holiday you celebrate. It means patriotism, love of country, and shared values.
Okay, stop right there. There's so many different things here. To merely say being American is fighting for your country, loving your country, has nothing to do with language or anything else is silly. It's just silly. Of course there's a common culture, and to say language has nothing to do with culture is ridiculous. But she's right. It is about shared values. Values of the rule of law, values of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and the idea of religious toleration, and the idea, and those kind of ideas. The idea is enshrined in the Declaration of Independence that we're all created equal with unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And those are common values. And then she says, well, that has nothing to do with language or culture. That's a part of the culture. So, but I don't know. I don't know, Tom Benson, if you can explain to me. I was having a hard time understanding some of her points. I mean, the biggest thing I think she was trying to make is, well, it has nothing to do with language.
Correct.
I don't know.
The trouble is, if you're on the battlefield fighting for your country, you want to be able to understand what people are saying to you.
Well, it's silly to me to suggest that language has nothing to do with common culture. I mean, of course, there's a common language in a culture. That doesn't mean you can't speak other languages on your own and stuff like that, but there's a common language. Mm-hmm. And it's a noble idea, I think, to assimilate, to have a common language. Otherwise, the culture breaks down if we don't have a common language. So, there you go. And continue on here, Tom Benson.
Nothing to do with culture.
I more or less 100% agree with everything you've just said. I'm not disagreeing with that. My concern is that we have, with all this business of identifying communities, this community, that community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, with all the emphasis on that it keeps people from assimilating into the larger American culture.
Nobody does more identity politics than Donald Trump. The guy who came down, announced he was running for president and called Mexicans rapists.
He didn't call all of them rapists.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest common misconceptions. Go ahead.
Than the guy who called for the Muslim ban. Nobody does more identity politics than the guy who tweets out against transgenders. So if you want there to be no identity politics, my request to you is to start by telling the president you support, regardless of what he does, to stop doing it himself.
Charles?
Okay, now stop right there. And Charles Blow is going to come in, and we'll get to that next. But, I didn't agree with Trump on the Muslim ban. But to act like the Republican Party and Trump is more about identity politics than the Democrat Party, come on. The Democrat Party has been all about identity politics, going after groups, the LGBT, minority, all that stuff, and telling them they're marginalized and telling them it's because of the other groups and that they'll redistribute wealth and do all this other stuff to help these specific groups. It's been all about identity politics. And Trump actually came in and said, we're going to make America great again for everybody. And then he brings up the transgender thing, which is just, I don't even want to start with the stupidity of our transgender debate. There's another debate where we're just not honest about it. We're just not honest about what that debate's really about. But so in the next segment, I want to get into Charles Blow, a black activist. He comes in and he brings up a whole nother topic. And he basically trashes a lot of our history, but he made some points that I just want to know what his goal is, I guess. Because I thought the goal was to have a colorblind society, but when I listen to him, I don't think that's his goal. I really don't. So we'll talk about that. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeart Radio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We're on until 9 p.m. tonight here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. If you're listening to the live show, make sure to check out the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. If you've missed any of the show, we've been talking about, we talked about the new immigration proposal that Trump is pushing, which limits legal immigration, which reprioritizes it based on a merit-based system. And those are the basic points of it. And it prioritizes based on if they can speak English. And it got into a conversation about assimilation. Shouldn't the goal of immigration be about assimilation? Because it doesn't seem like it is a lot of times anymore. And we should encourage immigrants that can come here and support themselves and contribute to the country and not just go on welfare programs and other stuff. And when you look at the statistics, a lot of immigrants are on welfare programs. 50% of the immigrant population is compared to 30% of the native population. That's just a fact. So you have to look at these things and deal with them. And deal with what's best for the culture and best for government spending and all that. So I started playing this exchange between some people on CNN's Anderson Cooper last night that was really revealing to me. Because once again, somehow this all became about race again. And it seems like every issue now becomes about race. And anytime you bring up race, it's usually, well, whites are the problem. Or one side says whites are the problem, the other side says blacks are the problem. And it seems like we never get to a solution. And the solution used to be a colorblind society where we look at the individual. But now, all I hear is, well, it's because of institutional racism that there's problems in the black community. Or, whatever. We're never trying to solve the problem. And so I was playing this conversation between Charles Blow, Jeffrey Lord, and Ana Navarro. Now, the first part I played had to do with more Jeffrey Lord and Ana Navarro. Now, Charles Blow, who's a black activist, comes in, and he starts to talk about the history of this country and how he thinks whites are being kind of hypocritical or something, or flip-flopping in terms of history. And I just listened to this, and I'm wondering what his solutions are and what his goals are for the future of this country. Is it to be a colorblind society? I'm not sure that's his goal. Here's where it continues.
I mean, I love the convenience of the flip-flopping, the historical flip-flopping, not the contemporaneous flip-flopping. White people literally invented racial caste systems in this country. Look at the American Anthropological Association. They did a whole statement about this. Literally invented it in order to advantage themselves and disadvantage others.
And then they all became
Okay,
Democrats.
stop right there. When you say white people, what do you mean, by the way? There's lots of different groups of whites. Now, my ancestors are Polish Jews, on my dad's side at least. I'm pretty sure they came here after slavery. I don't know if they had any part in the racial caste system. Now, if they were Polish Jews, I bet you they were persecuted where they came from. Jews were persecuted in time, so there's that whole thing. But it's sort of a trashing of our history, you can kind of hear. But there's no doubt that we've had problems of race in our history. There's no doubt. With slavery, with segregation, with Jim Crow in the South, yes, we have had issues in our history that we're trying to correct. So what is the solution then to correct those problems? And that's what I'm not sure his solutions are the best. He continues on here.
Well, okay, you can go with that if you want to, but I'm going to finish this point. Right? And it succeeded so well that people were isolated and were forced to to enjoy and luxuriate in their own cultures, right? And now all of a sudden, as America browns, and there are now more brown babies being born in America than there are white babies, and all of a sudden then it becomes, we now need to look at, discrimination against white kids in college. Now we need to have everybody assimilated when they come. Now we need everybody to speak English. Jason Miller stood at that stand today and kind of talked down the poem that's on the Statue of Liberty because it's added later, which is actually a white nationalist talking point. We're not
okay, stop right there. The fact is that's true, that the poem was added later. And as I talked about in yesterday's show, it's one of the most misunderstood poems out there, most misunderstood things out there. The main point of that poem is so we don't end up like Europe, because she was a Jew, a heritage of German Jews, and she saw the persecutions of Jews across the world, and she realized America was a place where you weren't persecuted for those things, that you had opportunities to succeed. And you didn't have to be a lord, or you didn't have to be in the upper class to succeed. You could succeed anytime. That was the purpose of the poem, but we won't get into all of that. But the fact that Stephen Miller was right, it was added later. But he continues on here.
But the idea that's added later and all that. But when it was more white faces showing up on these shores,
so in other words,
huddle masses, we were embracing that. It's just
stop right there. That's actually not true. When you look at the history, there was a lot of whites who did not embrace it, who didn't like the immigrants coming in because of the problems we've addressed. They talked about that earlier in this segment, that some Irish immigrants were kind of treated differently. So the idea that, when it was white people, everyone just got along and it was utopia. But now it's because it's more brown people or Asian people coming in. Now we have a problem with it and we have to change it. This is the narrative that the left often uses all the time when it comes to immigration. And yet I don't know any white people that care what your race is if you're coming into this country. They continue on here.
Flip-flopping, it's really fascinating to me. When crack was ravaging the ghettos, as they put it, we couldn't wait to have stronger laws and lock them up, and they're making bad decisions and they're horrible people. And now that it's a bunch of white kids in the suburbs, hung out on painkillers, now they're all sick. And we need to
Stop right there. Okay. So that goes back into the whole, this is a new narrative created that we just locked up druggies in the black communities because they were black. And we couldn't wait to lock them up because they were black, because we're all racist. This is what I'm talking about. We can't, one thing, it's distorting our history. But two, it goes back to this idea that everything in this country in the past was about racism. So when we fought against drugs, it was really about racism. Now, the other point I want to make on this is, we have a big problem. We had a big problem with pill mills in Florida in the past few years. I'm pretty sure we arrested a lot of people for that, didn't we, Tom Benson? I'm pretty sure that was something that happened. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them were white. Mm-hmm. Is it not?
Mm-hmm.
So this idea that, we care about them because they're sick. Well, that's partly true, but we also arrested a lot of people, a lot of the dealers in the pill mills, and we're arresting a lot of the heroin dealers now. And we're going after the dealers because they're killing innocent people. So this whole idea that, now we don't think it's a crime issue at all because it's white people. It's just not true. I saw it in the news arresting people who were promoting these pill mills. So it's just this distortion of history, and he wants you to think that this country has a history of nothing but racism, that all these decisions we made in our government was just about racism, and that it still exists in this country today. How do we move forward as a society when we keep having this discussion and keep believing that it's all about racism? We can't. He continues on.
Billions of dollars into budgets in order to fix their sickness, because they're not bad people, they're just sick. Do you not see this kind of historical flip-flopping and how problematic it is?
I do see the historical flip-flopping. And what I see is when Dr. King said that he wanted America where his children were judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin, we now have liberals saying, in essence, that's racist, and that's wrong.
We have liberals saying what?
That is racist.
What's
that
racist?
Sentiment to judge people in a colorblind society, that is now racist. We all have to identify by race. That's wrong.
I don't think that's what people are saying. In fact, what I think people are actually saying is that the structures of racism were in place for so long, so many centuries.
I agree.
One second. So many centuries that the benefit of that system, that caste system of oppression, redounded to people today. And once you get stuck in one part of society, whether you're wealthy or poor or whatever, it's so sticky. And how do we
stop right there?
The system that we created.
That's Marxism that he's promoting. That's the common Marxist line. That we are stuck in our caste. That in this country today, if you're in the poor, you're stuck in poverty. And that we're just a bunch of classes, and that there's no opportunity to change from one class to the other. That it's sticky. In fact, mostly, though, what gets people stuck in poverty is our government programs. Mm-hmm. Those are what create a cycle of poverty. But in fact, even with that, there's still many people, it happens all the time, where people change from lower class to upper class, or upper class to lower class, or from lower class to really rich. It happens every day in this country. It happens all the time. There's economic opportunity for all people all the time. But he's promoting the Marxist line that, oh, well, because of the racism of the past, people are stuck in their poverty. Well, they're going to be stuck in your poverty if you keep promoting that line, telling them that. Because that's what happens. They go in these communities and they say, because of racism in the past, that's why you're poor now.
So here's how we're going to get you some money.
Yeah, and usually then the solution is some big government program and redistribution of wealth. Mm-hmm. And punishing the rich, because they're the reason, the rich white guy's the reason you're poor today. And Jeffrey Ward's basically saying, he's saying the goal should be a colorblind society. The goal should be equal opportunity for all. And he's saying, no, racism still exists. The reason why they're in that situation today is because of racism. And when it's just such when you put out that perception out there, you get groups of people that believe it. So they vote in people that say, oh, they're going to take from the rich because they've been racist and put me down. That's what's happening in Venezuela right now. That's what happened. Hugo Chavez came in and said, the rich is why you're poor, and I'm going to take from them and give to you. And what happened? They're all poor now. The country's collapsing. It's Marxism. And it's based on this, and we can't move forward. You would think the goal would be, okay, now we have a colorblind society. Now you have every opportunity to succeed no matter what race you are. Go out and work hard to succeed. But instead you have leaders like this guy telling them you can't because of racism. And you need some government program to help you out. You need special favors like affirmative action to help you out. They continue on here.
Yeah, the system of repression is a design system. It is not a fluke. We create the system. Now, how do we fix it? What are our best mechanisms to try to undo the doing?
The law has to be colorblind.
Well, no, it's cute now that you said it needs to be colorblind, but it wasn't need to be colorblind when it was helping people to oppress other people. So I'm just saying what people are trying to do is figure out, is there something we can do to rectify a historical imbalance? And I think the idea of asking that question and attempting to answer it is actually a noble thing to do.
I agree with that. So,
see, that proves to me right there, because he goes, what can change? What needs to change? And Jeffrey Ward goes, what needs to change is the law needs to be colorblind. That should be the goal. If the law is colorblind, if the society is colorblind, that is what helps people escape from poverty. Mm-hmm. That is what helps this country. And what does he say? Oh, that's cute. But no, we need to rectify it. And I guarantee you, if you got in a real conversation with this, his rectification would be either reparations,
right,
or would be some kind of redistribution scheme where the government takes from the rich and gives to the poor, or something like that, or some big government program that you have to be a part of. And people buy into it because of leaders like him who say that. And this is so frustrating to me, because I don't think Charles Blow's goal is a colorblind society. I think his goal is revenge, personally. I think his goal is now we need to bring down the whites to raise up the blacks. I think that's his goal. I really believe that, because the answer is a colorblind society. The answer is judging everyone by the content of their character. Yet when he mentions that, he's saying, oh, you didn't care about that in the past. Well, I wasn't there in the past. I wasn't there during slavery. I can only control what's in now, and I care about it now. But it just doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like Charles Blow's goal is a colorblind society. He wants giant government to rectify the caste system. It's all Marxist language. That is how this country leads down to socialism. It's exactly out of the Marxist playbook. All right, we will end the show with a couple of things that made Yaffee laughy. We got really serious for a while, so we have to lighten up a little bit. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. All right, let's lighten things up a little bit. It is time for things that made Yaffee laughy. Yes, things that made Yaffee laffy. This is like animal edition, I guess, right now of things that made Yaffee laffy. I found this story on Newser today.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, roosters aren't for everyone.
Okay.
There's a woman who lived in a small town in Michigan who did a whole Facebook rant that went viral against her rooster. Very upset at her rooster.
He wakes her up early in the morning? Is that the problem?
Yes.
Really?
And she went on this whole rant, and I can't even say it all because there's a lot of cussing, against her rooster. Says she wants to give away the rooster.
Uh-huh.
Poor rooster.
Uh-huh.
Says free to a good home. Well, any home, really. At this point, I don't give a blank what kind of home this inconsiderate jerk goes to. And then calls the rooster a bad name. Says he's the perfect rooster if your alarm is broken and you need to be awake by 5:30 a.m. It's his only setting, 5:30. He has no snooze button, but will be quiet just long enough for you to fall back to sleep, and then he'll start back up with an obnoxious cockadoodle doing right outside of your windows.
Mm.
I don't know how you didn't know this to begin before you got the rooster.
Mm-hmm. That's what they do.
Yeah. It's like he knows where you sleep and can zone in on a particular window, so maybe he has some sort of special X-ray vision where he can see sleeping people behind walls.
So she must move from bedroom to bedroom then.
I guess. I don't know.
He finds her.
He says, she continues on, he is also a perfect rooster if you want to start running around your yard while you're trying to get away from him. This is the rooster from hell she's trying to get rid of here. He no longer goes after me as he is also an instructor of interpretive dance, or at least that's what I imagine it looked like as I went after him, flapping my arms, jumping up and down, kicking at him, yelling and screaming and swinging a mop in his direction. I like this rooster. I want to give him a home.
The rooster's not dumb.
So if you're looking for an alarm clock with the only setting being 5:30, a personal trainer, and a dance instructor, I have the perfect rooster that is able to fill all three of those positions for free. But if you're coming out to catch this blank, I want to see your first interpretive dance lesson. And she posted a picture of the rooster sitting there. Poor rooster. Man, he's just trying to do his thing, you know? Cockadoo-a-dooing at 5:30 in the morning.
Poor rooster saying, nobody loves me, honey.
Oh, I just thought that was funny. I was like, man, you're really upset over your rooster. I mean, I kind of would be upset. Well, I wouldn't be because I have to get up at like 4 in the morning, so I would probably be waking up the rooster. And then the rooster would be upset at me for waking him up early or something. All right. I appreciate y'all joining me today for Beyond Reason Radio. If you missed any of the show, check out the podcast anywhere that podcasts are available. And have a good weekend, and I will catch you guys next time.
I look inside.